Good morning. Today is Thursday, May 21st, 2026, and we are on record with the Grant County Board of Equalization. We'll be hearing petition number 2025-225 for parcel number 34332-121956918, represented by Contact Building LLC AGML Holdings Kim Foster, who is in attendance. The assessor's office is represented by Clayton Johnson, who is in attendance. Please silence your cell phones and note these hearings are being recorded and will be posted to YouTube once the order has been issued. Mr. Chair, the board is convened and the hearing is open.
The hearing today is regarding the true and fair value set by the Grant County Assessor's Office. Reminder, this relates to the assessed value of your property, not your property taxes. Board of Equalization is independent of the Assessor's Office. There are 3 citizens appointed by the Grant County Commissioners and trained by the Department of Revenue. Today's board is comprised of myself, Jim Breakville, as chair, Jerry Gingrich as vice chair, and Rosa Decker as member. We reviewed all evidence presented by both parties. This hearing is only to provide any additional oral testimony. No new evidence may be submitted at this time. Remember, everyone's time is valuable. Please try to keep to the timelines and please address the board only. Do both the appellant and the assessor's representative swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
Yes. The appellant will go first, followed by the appraiser. Go ahead.
Great. So before we start, just a procedurally question. So there are 3 appeals this morning from 3 of our entities. So Comtech Building is this first one. And then we have North American Foreign Trade Zone Industries, or NAFC as we call it, as the second group, and PIA LLC as the third group. Those are 3 separate entities that we own. Can we put the map back up, please? The 3 separate entities own all of this property in this area. And so we have it owned under 3 distinct and separate entities, but the story is going to be the same on all of them. So my question is, I have essentially general comments about the general market conditions and the general overall underlying conditions of this site. And it's going to save a lot of time if I can just give my preamble once, and then we talk about the individual parcels, if that makes sense. Otherwise, I don't know, do I have to give the same speech for each of the 19 parcels? It seems like that's a waste of time.
I think you're correct. I think the preamble is fine. Do you have any objection? Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's fine.
Great.
And then we'll go to the specifics.
Great, that's great. So with that, I will start. My name is Kim Foster. I'm the corporate counsel for the 3 entity taxpayers that are appealing. We come before you today appealing the assessor's valuation. I wanted to give a little bit of background on who we are, to the extent you may not be familiar with our company. We are one of, if not the largest, industrial commercial development company in the county. We own several thousand acres in the county across the spectrum of uses. So we're very familiar with conditions in Grant County. I would say during the last year, we are probably the singular entity outside the data centers for development of commercial and industrial properties. We just finished, I think some of you might have been at the grand opening of the big LKQ Auto Parts facility out at the airport. And then is it possible just to have the map stay up there?
The map conflicts with the recording.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then I brought a hard copy then that we could use. And then you're probably also familiar, we just finished a big Amazon distribution center near these properties, Dollar General store out by these properties. So we've been feeding the economy over here as best we can. I think it'd probably be helpful, since we can't keep the map up. I brought one of these, Clayton. These are just copies of what's in the.
These aren't in the
package. They are in the package, yeah.
Okay, then we'll just use the package, because you really can't
Or-
take any new evidence.
I'm not submitting it as evidence, I'm just submitting it as a visual aid so that you don't have to dig through all of that information. But if you can represent to me that you've read all of the information and are familiar with each of the individual parcels and how they lay out with each other, then I guess we don't need any maps.
What do you want to do? What do you think?
I'm good either way.
I mean, I just have, it's just,
Right, just go ahead.
just a map.
You can give one to each of them?
Yeah, I got one for you. I anticipated that maybe the map couldn't stay up, but I think it's really important to have the map up there. So the colored stars represent the parcels that are on each of the three groups. So I want to talk just briefly about general conditions that we are facing when it comes to reflection of value. Right now, outside of the realm of the data centers in Grant County, we perceive the economy to be essentially dead. Grant County Trends just issued yesterday their new report. It's the same as the one that we submitted as part of the package. You're looking at about a 1% growth rate right now, which is extremely anemic. We're having a really difficult time attracting employers. With respect to these properties, you'll note on the eastern boundary of the parcels is the railroad. And that would be here. The railroad fronts the parcels on the east. I think it's important to note that that railroad has no value. It's defunct. It's not in use. It's subject to what we understand is maybe a 3 to 5 year plan to have it upgraded by the Port of Moses Lake. But right now, there is no rail service, and the railroad is substandard, and the company that owns the rail line, it's called Jaguar. They have no intent to use it until any upgrades are made. So to the extent the assessor is putting any value to these parcels along the railroad, there is no railroad. The second general thing outside of the just flatline economy over here is power. So these parcels were all predicated on having commercial and light industrial development on them. That's why this is a commercial binding site plan. This is not a plat. This is a commercial binding site plan, and as you know, that's a significant difference. And so when we platted this, I gave right away to the PUD to come down the railroad tracks with 115 kVA power transmission lines coming out of the fairgrounds substation and going up to the Titan substation. We did that on the belief and understanding that these parcels would have access to that 115 kVA line, which is a significant heavy load line, suitable for manufacturing, data centers, and things like that. Right now, in addition to the general economy being flatlined, the power company is out of power. So we can't get any power for any of these sites other than what I would describe as light warehouse type loads. So I have right now into the PUD an application for 2 megawatts of power. I think if you're familiar with power, that's a very light load. So the BMW plant that we put in out there was 70 megawatts, REC is 125. The data centers are a couple hundred megawatts. So in order for me to get 2 megawatts, I put in applications to the PUD. I have to wait 6 months for an answer on whether they can supply us with 2 megawatts, and the frontal answer is probably not. And so that significantly limits our ability to attract purchasers to these sites, given the commercial and light industrial zoning if they can't get power to allow them to do that. So we are pretty much limited on any of these sites right now to what I would call just warehouse, non-heated warehouse, LED lights inside, maybe a small office complex, but we are essentially powerless on these sites, which makes them not difficult to market at best, but really impossible to find a user. Nobody's going to come in and build a 100,000 square foot warehouse if they can't get the power to it. So those are kind of some of the general constraints on this site. And it affects all of them. It actually affects everything out at the airport. So I'm surprised that some of my other brethren companies out at the airport haven't come in to challenge their assessments, because what we thought were really great industrial sites are really almost worthless because we can't get industrial power to them. It's all gone to Quincy and we're out. So that's a significant impediment to us being able to sell these sites. So those are kind of the general constraints that I would say. The economy, no rail, no power. The fourth one, which is really the elephant in the room, is the EPA activity. And this has been frustrating for us for a couple of years. I remember when Kevin Burgess was a commissioner on your board, that he was shocked that the assessor was generally unaware that this is a Superfund site. And so I want to take a minute on that. If you'll go back to the page right before this map that looks like this. So we purchased this property from the Burlington Northern Railroad's real estate arm in the 90s. And subsequent to us purchasing it, the city of Moses Lake found that they had TCE, tetrachloroethylene, in their drinking water wells. And tetrachloroethylene is a class 1 carcinogen. And because of that, the city of Moses Lake had to shut off their drinking wells in this area. Pretty much everything that they were generating in the Larson area and just south of 17, those wells were so contaminated that they had to shut them off. And so they had people using bottled water, and it's a really bad situation. And so the EPA came in and they made an assessment. And so the EPA declared this area the Moses Lake Well Field, NPL, which stands for National Priorities List, and the street term for that is Superfund. So the EPA came in and declared the area a Superfund site because of the cancerous causing TCE and groundwater. And they embarked on about a 10-year plan to figure out where is this TCE coming from and what can we do to clean it up. So let's see if I have the map. So yep, here we go. So if you go back to the front sheet, the very front sheet of the package, this is the overall map. And if you look at this triangle parcel on the other side of the railroad tracks from us, that's the former Larson Air Force Base garbage dump. And so, as I'm sure you are aware, should be aware, the Grant County International Airport used to be Larson Air Force Base. Larson Air Force Base was decommissioned in 1965. When they were decommissioning the base, they dumped anything and everything into that garbage dump. And the testimony is that they dumped tanker loads of TCE into those trenches. You can see the scarring on the ground there where those trenches are. And so the EPA determined that that was the cause, or that's the source, the smoking gun for the TCE. And so the TCE, because the ground over here is so permeable, the TCE migrated down into the groundwater and hit the groundwater aquifer that's perched on top of the basalt, and it started to spread. And so if you now go back and look at this one, the colored one. So this will show you, you'll see starting at the garbage dump up there, and then proceeding to the south and to the west across Highway 17, that is where the plume of the TCE is contaminating the groundwater. And so it puts all of these sites that we're talking about today within the Superfund designation. And I have to explain to that for the record in case we need it to go farther. So what that means when they do that is that the EPA is allowed to institute what they call institutional control over your property. So EPA essentially has control of the property. They get access to it. They can dig it up if they want to clean it. They can pretty much do anything they want under their institutional control authority. As a practical matter, I have tried over the years to work as closely as I can with EPA to try to minimize the impacts of their surface work on our properties. But all of these properties are within the EPA's institutional control boundary, meaning they control the property, not us. So if I want to build something out there, I have to make sure it's okay with them first. And I have to make sure that we're not disturbing something that they're doing out there. So they're in essence the overriding authority out there for the Superfund site. So the EPA, in our package, we submitted a copy. After about, well, it was in 2009, the EPA had completed their testing, and there are about 20 monitoring wells out here in this area where they try to figure out how pervasive the plume is, how bad the plume is, and how they're going to clean it up. So in 2009, they issued what's called an ROD, a record of decision. And on the record of decision, it says that they were going to initiate a system, they call it a pump and treat system. And it's used pretty much around the country. It's actually fairly successful. And what they do is they come in and they drill wells into the property, and they extract the groundwater out of the wells, and they pump it through a system of pipes. And I'll show you the maps. And the pipes go into what's called the pump and treat facility. And that pump and treat facility, I'll show you where that is. So the contaminated groundwater goes into the pump and treat facility, and it's quite an elaborate operation in there. So when you go in, you'd think you're either on a steamship or some high-tech, winery or something. It's got big tanks and vats and all kinds of things. And so they take the TCE out of the water and they put it in tanks to be disposed of. And then the clean water is re-injected back into the ground. And so the pump and treat is continually cycling the groundwater through the system. And the plan is that it will eventually clean the groundwater, not to clean standards to where you could have a well or drinking water well, but to baseline industrial standards. So there will still be some TCE in the groundwater, but the plan is to reduce it down to at least the MOTCA industrial standards. So when I have a great relationship with the EPA. And so the EPA came to me and said, hey, could we install our pump and treat facility on some of your property, because you can see we are directly downstream as the plume is moving this way. We are directly downstream from the garbage dump. And so it was the best location for them to catch the most contaminated water. So we try to do a lot of good things for the community as part of our mission statement. So we gave the EPA the authority for as long as they need to have our sites so that they could install their pump and treat system so that the city of Moses Lake's drinking water would get cleaned up. And we did that at zero cost. They don't pay us a dime. We voluntarily did that, and we ceded that property control of that property to them so that they can construct their facility. So if you look at the, I'll just pull one of these out. These are all in the package, by the way. So if you were to look at any of these drawing pages like this, it will show you the pump and treat facility that's built back along the railroad tracks. And you can see all of the underground piping that's connected to it that goes throughout these parcels and collects the contaminated water, takes it over to the pump and treat facility, and then re-injects it into the ground. And then, so if you go, let me go back here now. Let's use this one, this aerial photo that looks like this. So this aerial photo shows the pump and treat building, the white building back along the tracks. And then you'll see extending to the right and to the left of the building, you'll see the scarring on the ground where the EPA has built their injection trenches. And you'll see right in the middle of you'll see a square feature right in the middle of, that's the site of one of their extraction wells. And so the latest word from the EPA, and we included an email from the regional administrator, is that they think they still have about 10 years left of running their plant in order to get the groundwater clean. It's actually monitored out of Salt Lake City and Denver, the data is, and they are making progress. I mean, it's some of these sites they put in, it doesn't work. And so this one, it does seem to be working. And so they're making progress, and they think about 10 more years, and they should be able to start removing their trench, their wells, their facilities and everything, and to return the control of the property back to us. And so so that's kind of the context, the background context of all of this is that, you know, we've got this plume. We're identified as a Superfund site. I'm sure I don't have to explain to you the kind of stigma that gives a piece of property. And it looks like we're on about a 10-year path in order to get this finished. So that begs the question, how does that impact the value of these sites? So the EPA gets its authority from a federal law called the Comprehensive Environmental Remediation and Cleanup Liability Act. We call it CERCLA, C-E-R-C-L-A. And the street term for the CERCLA Act is simply the Superfund Act. So everybody's heard of the term Superfund. So the Superfund gets its name from CERCLA. The problem is that when they adopted CERCLA, you can understand how I have one site in downtown Tacoma, there's one out by Fort Lewis. You know, a property that was contaminated by the one in Tacoma is by the gas company in the 1920s. It may have changed hands 30 times between then and now. And a lot of the companies in the chain of title, in fact, the ones that might have put the contamination there have gone out of business. They no longer exist. And so that would have left the government holding the bag on cleanup. And so what CERCLA does, and this is what absolutely punishes the value of these sites, is CERCLA has contained in it what is called joint and several liability. And what joint and several liability means is if you buy a site that is in a Superfund designation and you own it for 1 minute, you are responsible for 100% of the cleanup. Even though you didn't put it there, you didn't know it's there, you have no idea what it is, but because you took title to a Superfund site, they can come after you for 100% of the cost of the cleanup. Then it's your obligation to go out and find who might have been responsible and to drag them into the process. So you can imagine that is an extremely daunting and expensive proposition, and therefore the risk just becomes intolerable for almost any sophisticated buyer. So then you can come back and say, okay, well, in this situation, it's pretty obvious that the United States Air Force and the Department of Defense were the ones responsible for dumping the TCE into the Air Force's own garbage dump. That's a pretty clear connection. And then the EPA has come in and essentially accepted liability on behalf of the Air Force and the Department of Defense to clean this up, hence the pump and treat system that they've installed, millions of dollars that they're doing to clean this up. So then you could say, well, so what's the risk? Well, the risk is that the EPA only deals with what's there now. So if I build a factory out there, or I build a warehouse out there, or a car dealership out there, and somebody's truck leaks oil or hydraulic fluid or gasoline or any other chemical you can think of, and it gets into that same plume, now all of a sudden we have recontaminated the plume, and we are now 100% responsible to reimburse the EPA for all of the costs because we have essentially repolluted what they're trying to deal with. So the EPA will tell a surface user that they don't intend to come after the surface user as long as the surface user does not contribute anything to the existing plume. And that language, if you are a sophisticated buyer, will make you run for the hills because you can't control a site. I mean, think about your own house. Have you ever spilled a gallon of gas at your house or had one of your cars leak something? You can't get a level of control that gets most companies to a comfort level that they are willing to accept that risk and use the surface of the property. It's just, if there are other properties available that don't have that burden, they're going to go there and they're not going to look at this. So consequently, we haven't been able to attract a user for these sites since we bought them. We spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars marketing our properties. And every time we try to get a user to come to these sites, it is absolutely impossible. So a couple of examples. So I mentioned Dollar General. So Dollar General, let's get back to the map. Let's just go with this front page map. So Dollar General came to us and said they wanted to build a store there. And so they chose the site that is right at the corner of Patton and Loring, right here, right by the big water tank out there, right across the street from the gas station. That was the site that they chose. They negotiated a purchase price for it. It was all a go. And then they went and did the environmental permitting. And because of the monitoring wells that are near there, that are on the property, the monitoring wells made it prohibitive for them to build their building. And because of the plume underneath, they came back and said, no, we're abandoning the site. We cannot do this. This is too dangerous. And so we took them and we moved them up to the corner of Westover and Patton, which is outside the plume. If you look at your plume map there, the colored map. So we moved them outside of the critical part of the plume. And then they built the store. They went ahead and did it and built the store. Then Amazon, if you've been out there, I'm assuming you're familiar with these sites. So the same with Amazon. They came in and they looked at the sites and they came back and said, we are taking the site. We want to be outside the plume. And so they moved up by the Grant Transit Authority's building to the north to get outside of the plume. So that was another example of a sophisticated buyer understanding we are not going to deal with that. And then Another one is, you've seen the apartments that are built here behind the assisted living building. There's those black modern looking apartment buildings. That's a California developer called Strand Development. And they were going to expand and build another, I think it was another 140 units just to the east. And in the packet, we have a letter from the Strand Development folks saying that they have abandoned that project because they cannot get financing to build on top of the plume, that their lender says no, they absolutely will not lend on that. So that was another instance. Probably the most graphic one that just occurred here in the last few months is the city of Moses Lake came to us and said that they would like to build a new fire station out on Loring Drive. And I said, okay. Again, we try to help the community. So I said, you pick the site and I'll give it to you. You know, we'll give you a site. And they said, well, we just need to have, you know, a couple acres anywhere on Loring Drive. And so because the EPA is already burdened on the one parcel, but I said, well, why, you could be on the front of the EPA parcel, you'd be there. And I said, or I've got these little sites at the corner of Loring and Owens and Loring. Right here at the corner, you'll see there's 4 smaller sites. I said, you could have one of those and do it there. And included in the packet is a email back from Chief Perillo, Moses Lake Fire Chief, saying that they cannot risk having any kind of fire station operations over the plume. The risk to the city is too high. So they came down and they've switched now to this parcel down here outside the plume. And so, again,
Which are you pointing to, sir?
it's the one that's, I'll come up here, you can see it easier. So we suggested here, and they said no way. And so they've come down and taken this one down here in the corner. And so this one, yeah, that one, that's the one that they're focused on now. And if you look at the plume map, you'll see that one, the one with the big green on it, you'll see that that's outside the plume. See down there in the corner, that site's outside of the plume. And so that's probably the most graphic example I have of diminution of value, that I couldn't even give it away. The city wouldn't take it. And I completely understand why they wouldn't, because, you know, that you're probably, it's another portion of our package, by the way. The other chemical that's surfaced out there is called PFAS, and you've probably heard about PFAS nationwide. PFAS is a chemical that is generally traced back to fire retardant chemicals, and it's randomly appearing in groundwater throughout the United States. It's also a carcinogen. And so the wells out here that the city have are now contaminated with PFAS. And so the city is trying to undertake whether they need to have wellhead treatment, whether they can try to flush them, try to get it out of there. But in any event, the fire department was in no way inclined to put any risk of PFAS on top of the TCE plume and get themselves into that Pandora's box. So we've got, and then the fourth one that I've got in the package is a commercial industrial lender came out and took a look, and you'll see if you reviewed the package, you'll see the letter from that lender saying they will not lend on these sites because of the Superfund designation. So I'm sorry that this is a lot of information, but it's really pertinent and it's frustrating. I'll get to the frustration point in a minute, but it's important to understand how dangerous this whole area is. And so under the CERCLA law, lenders are generally exempt from the joint and several liability provisions. So you would think a lender is pretty safe. So why would a lender refuse to lend? Well, it's a pretty easy answer. Because if the lender assumes that their borrower is going to default and they have to take the property back, guess what? Now they own it and they can't get rid of it. So lenders avoid, not because of primary liability, but the secondary effects that if they have to foreclose on the property or take it back, they'll never be able to get rid of it. It'll be a bad loan. So in general, you can't get anybody to lend on these sites. So with that as, I guess I should stop. Do you have any questions on any of that? I know it's a lot of information. That's generally the story. And so the individual petitions are really predicated on that being the story. And I've included the in the package, there are all the EPA drawings that show where all the trenches and monitoring wells and the pump and treat and injection trenches. It shows it's pervasive throughout the whole area. And so I want to be candid that I had some discussion, and I actually personally had a difference of opinion with my employers. My employers tried to, you'll notice, come up with a percentage reduction in value based on where they thought the plume was positioned over each individual parcel. So they concluded that if the part of the plume that had the highest concentrations was over the parcel, they took a significant reduction. If it was in a part of the plume that was the concentrations were less, they had a lower reduction. My personal opinion is that it's until the EPA is done, you're never going to sell these. I mean, so that's my position on it. Trying to cut a fine line with, does the plume go here? Does it go over there? As long as the EPA has that map, it doesn't really matter where the concentration is, because the stigma of being in CERCLA and the risk of the joint and several liability, it's going to cause anybody, it doesn't matter if it's in the lighter impacted area or the heavier impacted, it's going to be a stigma. So when we go through these individual petitions, I understand why it has to be done with each parcel as its individual petition, but it's really the same story for the whole lot of them. I would say with one exception, it's actually two parcels. So if you go back and look at the last map that has the stars on it, so the red stars are the two parcels that actually have the pump and treat facility on them and their dispersion trenches on them. And so those parcels, in our opinion, have zero value, public value, until the EPA is finished, because those are absolutely totally constrained by that pump and treat facility. Then the ones that are in yellow are the ones that are, I would say, medium impacted, if you want to say that. But like I said, I don't think it matters on the magnitude of the plume concentration, because you're either in the plume or you're not. But that's why those are like that. And then if you look at the drawing set, you'll see how the trench, you'll see how the trench system and the extraction wells are all over running through there. So if you have somebody, and I take them out there all the time. In fact, I'm meeting one person out there this afternoon. If I take people out there and show them these sites, just put yourself in their position. I don't know your backgrounds. I don't know if you're business owners. I don't know what you do. But think about if I take you out and I say, hey, I've got a commercial site, and they say, okay, I'm interested, let's go look. And they see that big yellow pipe coming out of the ground. They're gonna say, what's that? Oh, that's a EPA monitoring well. What's that for? Well, we're sitting on a Superfund site. Oh, see ya, we're done. The larger impact, of course, is if they see a bunch of signs going back along the property line, they say, what's that? Oh, that's an extraction trench. Extraction trench for what? Oh, we're trying to pump a class 1 carcinogen out of the ground. Oh, and so I'm supposed to have a facility built and I'm supposed to have my employees working on top of a plume of class 1 carcinogens. It's no, see ya, we're done. And they won't do it. And so that's kind of the context of the background that affects this whole thing. The frustration for us, and Clayton, please don't take this personally. The frustration for us is that the assessor essentially just shuns the whole argument. It's like when Kevin Burgess was here, he was shocked they didn't even know there was a Superfund out there. But the assessor essentially just disregards the whole Superfund designation. And so I think it's in the pack, I know it's in the package. I think from 2017 until now, or 2018 until now, the assessor amped the value of these properties by a magnitude of 1,000%. They were valued at, in 2018 or whatever, like at 60,000, a parcel would be 60,000, and now it's valued at 600,000. So as the Superfund is out there getting dealt with, the assessor is not only completely disregarding that, but they're amping the value of these sites by 1,000% while this is all taking place. It's like, hello. And so it's frustrating for me that I've been working in this county for 35 years. I'm responsible for some of the largest industrial growth and employment here. And I have never received a phone call from the assessor. And I'm not talking about you, Clayton, I'm talking about Michelle. I've never received a phone call, just a courtesy phone call to say, hey, could we meet and talk about this? Because this doesn't seem right. Something's not right here and we would like to get it fixed. And because we're a big landowner, I mean, we don't live or die off of this one situation. We're reasonable. To me, it certainly makes sense that the two sites that have the pump and treat building sitting on them are valueless until the EPA is done. I mean, if I were to have a discussion with the assessor, I would suggest that all of the sites that are on the plume be sequestered until, if I can find somebody to buy it, fine, start taxing them. But until I can find somebody to buy one or willing to take the risk, or until the EPA is done, these sites are essentially locked in limbo. And if I can attract someone to come in and take one of them, and they're willing to pay whatever they're willing to pay, well, fine, start taxing them, that's great. But for us to have our valuations increase by tenfold while we're sitting on top of the most contaminated site in the county, you're called the Board of Equalization. I mean, how fair is that? And so I'm suggesting that, these valuations be reduced or again held in abeyance until either the EPA is finished or again, if I hate to use the term sucker, but if I can find some sucker willing to buy one of them, fine, start taxing them. It's your business. But until then, these things are essentially locked in the jailhouse, and there's not much worth. We don't have a lot of value to them at this point. So with that, I mean, I'll stop now. As far as each individual parcel, I don't know. I'm at your beck and call at what you want to do on that. The story's the same on all of them. The two that have the pump and treat facility, it shows this is the drawing that shows. I mean, those two parcels are completely impacted. The others, I suppose the as I look at it, anything on the plume, people are gonna run the other way. I suppose somebody could make a quote unquote reasonable argument that the parcels that actually have the trenches and pumps and wells on them are more impacted than the ones that are more innocuously located over the outer skirts of the plume that, you know, may or may not have as much TCE under them as some of the others, but I think that's a fool's errand to try to figure out which of those there is. So with that, if you have any questions, or again, you tell me how you want me to address the individual parcels. I just don't think it's really necessary. And I'm sorry that you sequestered the whole morning, because I don't think we're gonna need the whole morning for, you know, for this, as long as I can say that my speech applies to all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's it.
Clayton?
All right, so a whole lot of information there, and I'm not going to touch on all of it because I'm going to focus on the parts that are pertinent to this. And that's going to be the market value of these properties. As stated, I mean, these are in a plume. What we need to see as the assessor's office in order to reflect in a market valuation for these would be some evidence that these sell for less. The fact that they don't sell at all doesn't give us anything to work with as far as what the effect of these circumstances are on the market value. On page 4 of my response, you will see here that I've listed the sales of the vacant land parcels in that area that were used to develop these land rates. It was mentioned that in around 2018, these values went up. That would have been right around the time these were in an inspection cycle, and that's when we're going to look at our land. And since there was sales, as you see here, the first sale on that list there that I have that sold for $7.77 a square foot, you can see on the map here is actually located inside that plume, and that was sold again in 2022. So with that, we're not seeing anything that one being the highest, much higher than the other sale, dollar per square foot. So with that, we're not seeing any effect on the market. Now, the other one's not selling. That doesn't really provide us any good information. And I also mentioned in my response here, as you'll see on the map here, that there was a recent sale. Now, this sale wasn't used for this because it was a different zoning, and I believe it's in a different neighborhood for our purposes. Sorry. So, and that is being developed. And as you can see on the map that the appellant has provided, I mean, it does appear that that's in the plume as well. And that recently sold for $3,379,200 or $1.83 per square foot. On this particular parcel, we have it at 79 cents a square foot. So based on the sales that we have that are shown here, and that most recent sale, again, not being used, but as an illustration as well, these are with these environmental factors, they aren't able to be sold or developed, but yet we have one that's being sold, that's been sold and is being developed with residential. So what impact does that have on that particular property being inside that plume? Let's see here.
I'm not seeing which one you're talking about.
That'd be on my response.
Okay, but which do you have a parcel number?
It's on my neighborhood map on page 3. It's going to be labeled as recent sale. And the parcel number is 110475-341. That sale isn't on the grid here.
Okay.
But I had listed it underneath my sales. That says that parcel was sold by PIA LLC, which is one of the appellants here, on October 14, 2024 for $3.379 million or $1.83 per square foot. Again, that one wasn't used. The sales that are in that grid are of commercially zoned properties on the Port of Moses Lake. And again, that first sale in April of 2022, as seen on the map provided here, it does appear to be, well, it's in this outline of the subject parcels, whether or not the effect of the plume on it, if it's in the higher concentration areas or not. With that, the question about, it looks like these values are being reduced in the petition. They have, based on the area that they're at, they have a certain percentage reduced. It appears that how they came up with the value, but there is no sales that show that. Where is something that gives us the information to say, okay, well, this one is in right here in the middle of the plume, and it sold for X amount dollar per square foot. And then one that's outside the plume sold for X amount per square foot. Then we could say, okay, well, this one's only $1 square foot. This one sold for $5 a square foot. Obviously, there's an effect by this plume. If we don't have that information, we would just be guessing at what the effect is, or putting them at zero value. So we would need something that shows the effect, not that there's just no sales of these. We can't take that negative and reflect it. So with that, as the appellant stated, I mean, these are all the same, so I can read off the individual values that we're recommending. On this particular one, the land is valued at $649,044, and that is going to be our recommended to sustain that value.
Your Bob?
Yeah, briefly. So with all due respect, Clayton just gave my argument. He said, because there are no sales within the plume, we can't guess what the value would be of a property in the plume versus a property outside the plume. That's exactly right. We can't find anybody to buy these things. I come back to the point that I'm not going to chase somebody away. So the fact that somebody bought a parcel that was way down low in the low concentration of the plume, that's going to be on them. We know who bought it. We know what they're going to do there. It's going to be very interesting to see how their home sales go when the prospective home purchasers find out that they're sitting on top of that. So we'll see how that goes. But Clayton makes the point is that there aren't any sales. There aren't any sales because this plume is running people off. It also, I think there's some pretty graphic evidence here that we bought this stuff in the 1990s. So here we are 30 years later, and we haven't been able to get a single buyer in the plume. So the absorption rate is zero. And so if you take a random site, I don't know what the $7 a foot one you were talking about, how big that one was. Does it say how many acres that was? But if you take a small site that may equate to $7, in 30 years, you're able to find one person to buy a piece in 30 years, and you're suddenly going to extrapolate that over the entire plume to say, well, see, there's no problem with this plume because we found some dummy to buy it, one little piece. And so I think that's a fallacy argument to try to say, well, they haven't come up with a valuation on what properties on the plume should be. They need to show a sale in the plume. I can't show a sale in the plume because nobody will buy it. It's like trying to sell a three-legged racehorse. Nobody wants it. And so I can't prove what a three-legged racehorse is worth if nobody will buy it. And I think that's the critical problem here. I really think that, I can't go out and concoct some sale just so that I can satisfy the assessor in wanting to base it on a sale. And yet, what's the assessor's basing hers on? Well, she's basing her valuation on one little random sale and then blowing that clear across the plume and saying they must all be worth that because they found one dummy to buy that little tiny piece. And so I think that's that's just counterintuitive. I really think, and I would love to have a conversation with the assessor. Again, I don't know why she won't pick up the phone and have a conversation with me about this. But I really think that this situation cries for a period of abeyance until the EPA completes their operations and takes it off of the Superfund list, number one, takes it off of their institutional controls so that the person who actually buys the property has control over it, not the EPA. And, or if somebody does buy one, fine, take it off, start taxing them. That's great. That's your problem and their problem. But in the meantime, all of these ones that are sitting there in limbo, it seems to me the only logical thing to do is to hold these in abeyance until one of those three things occurs. Take off the institutional controls, finish the pump and treat, take it off the Superfund list, or somebody buys it. I think it's pretty, I think this is a pretty easy one to understand. I mean, it's not, it's not, this isn't rocket science. This is about as obvious as it gets, what the argument is here, and we'll just look for whatever direction you can. Again, we're reasonable. I'm willing to talk about it, but you have to have the person on the other side willing to talk too. And so that's where we are.
No?
No, I have nothing further.
Okay. Questions?
I just, for correctness, you're recommending sustaining all the values for all the parcels? Or are you gonna?
We're gonna go
through
through
those?
each one.
Okay,
We're gonna go through each one. For the sake of the clerk. Okay.
that's why I was asking.
Yeah, no.
It's like, yeah.
For sake of argument, how many times have you made an attempt to get a hold of the assessor yourself?
Well, over the years, I mean, I've talked with their staff a lot,
But you're singling out the assessor. How many times have you made the attempt to get a hold of the assessor herself?
I think I've probably tried to get a hold of her twice. And I was referred to staff.
In recent time?
Not during this cycle. I think in the last cycle I did, and I was referred to staff.
Okay.
And,
All right.
and then I think, when she first came into office, we had several issues that I reached out to her for, again, was referred to staff.
Anything else?
So I'm just gonna be announcing the petition numbers and the
Okay.
parcel numbers. And then we'll have them state that it's the same piece for each one, just for the record.
Just
And then-
anything specific?
So we're gonna move to petition number 2025-226 for parcel number 34352-1219569338. And all of these petitions this morning are represented by AGML Holdings, Kim Foster. This one is for Comtech Building LLC. And for all of these petitions, the assessor's office is represented by Clayton Johnson. Both are in attendance. Mr. Chair.
Keep in mind you're still under oath. Go ahead.
So just to make sure I'm on the right one. So these are parcels ending in 12, 37, and 38.
I only show that there is one for 38.
So Comtech Building is,
So parcel number 34352-1219569338. And this is petition number 2025-226. And the last one that we did was, that was petition 2025-225, and that was 34332-1219569118. Both of those are Comtech Building LLC.
937 is on the list further down.
Yeah, it's
So 937 is nasty.
Petition
Instead of-
237.
I see.
so that Comtech I'm showing as 918 and 939. Clayton, is that right?
938 and 918 is Comtech.
Which one is 938?
It's going to be.
I don't have a 939 on my list at all.
Which, oh, 938 is this one, I think. There, that's this one, right?
938 is petition.
See, when you zoom in, it doesn't. Yeah. Yep, okay, so those two,
We're only addressing 938.
so at 938, we were at 177,354. Correct?
If you would like, I can read the current assessed values and the values if that
That's
helps.
fine.
Yeah,
parties.
I'm happy with that, yeah, why don't you just
So
read them in
for parcel number 121956938, I'm just gonna use parcel numbers instead of parcel IDs, just for ease of use here. We have the current assessed value as 208,652. And the petitioner's value at 31,298, and we are asking the board to sustain our value. Does that work
there.
for everybody if we
Yeah,
just go through that way?
Works great for me.
Okay.
Okay, did you have any rebuttal?
No, I think, I'm
Okay,
happy with
alright.
him reading those in,
Okay.
yeah.
Next is petition number 2025-227 for parcel number 34317-121956903, represented by the North American Foreign Trade Zone Industries, LLC.
Before you start, is this one of these that you had an issue with your employer about the 10%?
No, we're going with what my employer instructed me to do. I'm saying personally, I think they're all impacted, but my employer decided to try to stratify some of them, and so we'll just go with what they put in. It's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's clarification.
So on this parcel, we have a current assessed value of 622,690 with the petitioner's value of 62,269, and we're asking the board to sustain the current assessed value.
Any rebuttal?
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I disagree. My rebuttals disagree, but but no, I don't have any other. I'll stand on the information we've submitted. How about
All right.
Move to petition number 2025-228 for parcel number 34318-121956904, represented by North American Foreign Trade Zone Industries, LLC.
All right, Clayton.
All right, the current assessed value is 102,366. The petitioner's value was 15,355. We are asking the board to sustain the current assessed value.
my response is just to point out that's the parcel that the fire department expressly denied even giving it to them. That's that small parcel there at the corner of Loring and Owen.
Okay.
Next is petition number 2025-229 for parcel number 34319-121956905, represented by North American Foreign Trade Zone Industries, LLC.
Trying to get to Clayton, hang on a second. Okay, go ahead.
That's 8. I know this one's 9. 1, 2, 4. This is me on it.
I will have it on my mind. Yep. One of those.
Yeah.
All right, the current assessed value on this parcel is 103,129, with the petitioner's value is 10,313, and we're asking the board to sustain the current assessed value.
Question? Okay. All right.
Next is petition number 2025-230 230 for parcel number 34320-12195696, represented by North American Foreign Trade Zone Industries, LLC.
Go ahead, Clayton.
All right, the current assessed value is $426,623, and on this one, the petitioner's value is 0. We are asking the board to sustain the current assessed value.
So this is one of the two parcels that are directly and most impacted by the EPA's current operations of the pump and treat facility, injection wells, and extraction wells. And you can see that in the aerial photos. So that, I can't do anything with that parcel until the EPA is finished.
Right, go ahead.
Next is petition number 2025-231 for parcel number 34322-121956908, represented by North American Foreign Trade Zone Industries, LLC.
Go ahead, Clayton.
All right, the current assessed value on this parcel is $298,851, and this would be the other one where the petitioner's value is 0. We are asking the board to sustain the current assessed value.
Again, this is probably the ground zero of impact of EPA with the pump and treat facility on it, an extraction well right in the middle of it, and the injection trenches, as shown on the aerial photos. This site is by far and away the most heavily impacted, and I will have no use of this property until the EPA is complete.
Any questions? All right.
Next is petition number 2025-232 for parcel number 34323-121956909, represented by North American Foreign Trade Zone Industries, LLC.
Go ahead, Clayton.
All right, the current assessed value is $329,314. The petitioner's value is $32,931, and we're asking the board to sustain the current assessed value.
So this one would be in the category of generally in the plume, in the Superfund, in the institutional control area of the EPA. It has no direct EPA facilities on it.
All right. Questions?
Next is petition number 2025-233 for parcel number 34324-121956910, represented by North American Foreign Trade Zone Industries, LLC.
Go ahead.
So on this one, I do have a note here that it looks like the value was input incorrectly. I believe it was mixed up with that last one. Current assessed value is $358,064. Petitioner's value $32,931.
Give me that number again, please.
The current assessed value $358,064.
And the petitioner is.
Petitioner's value is $32,931.
This one, my turn?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
This one, another one in the plume, in the institutional control boundary, in the Superfund site boundary. The rail frontage is not active and no power.
Okay.
I have one more thing on that. I'm sorry. I was misspoken. The petitioner's value on that one is, based on their petition, is $35,806.
Okay.
I concur with that.
Okay.
And when I say no power, I mean no industrial quantity power.
Go ahead.
Next is petition number 2025-234 for parcel number 34325-121956911, represented by North American Foreign Trade Zone Industries LLC.
Quickly.
All right, the current assessed value is $251,777, and the petitioner's value is $25,178, and we're asking the board to sustain the current assessed value.
Go ahead.
This side is another one that's in the plume, in the institutional control boundary, in the Superfund boundary, rail, non-active, industrial power not available.
Go ahead.
Next is petition number 2025-235 for parcel number 34333-121956919, represented by North American Foreign Trade Zone Industries LLC.
Quickly.
All right, the current assessed value is $103,129, and the petitioner's value is $10,313, and we're asking the board to sustain the current assessed value.
Go ahead.
The assessed is $103,129.
In the plume, in the institutional control boundary, in the Superfund designation. Unfortunately, unless you zoom in on the assessor's website really close, if it's a small parcel, they tend to get, overlooked. So it's these little ones right here at the corner of Owen and Lauren.
Okay, got it. Okay. Go ahead.
Next is petition number 2025-236 for parcel number 34334-121956920, represented by North American Foreign Trade Zone Industries LLC.
Go ahead, Clayton.
All right, the current assessed value is $102,366, and the petitioner's value was $15,355, and we are asking the board to sustain the current assessed value.
Inside the plume, inside the institutional control boundary. And no industrial power. Likely.
Another small one?
Yeah, that's the side by side of the two small ones.
Go ahead.
Next is petition number 2025-237 for parcel number 34351-121956937, represented by North American Foreign Trade Zone Industries LLC.
Go ahead, Clayton.
All right, the current assessed value is $218,235, and the petitioner's value was $32,735, and we are asking the board to sustain the current assessed value.
In the plume, in the institutional control boundary, in the Superfund designation. Limited power.
Okay.
Next is petition number 2025-238 for parcel number 121956912, represented by PIA LLC.
Go ahead, Clayton.
All right, the current assessed value is $160,302. Petitioner's value was $24,045, and we're asking the board to sustain the current assessed value.
That's the parcel that we have agreed to give to the City of Moses Lake Fire Station at So that's a zero value site to us. We're donating that to the city.
Next is petition number 2025-239 for parcel number 121956913, represented by PIA LLC.
Go.
All right, the current assessed value is $164,221. Petitioner's value was $16,422. And we are asking the board to sustain the current assessed value.
That's institutional control, within the institutional control boundary of the EPA, within the Superfund designation of the EPA, at the very edge of the plume.
Next is petition number 2025-240 for parcel number 121956914, represented by PIA LLC.
Trying to get down to yours, Clayton. It's just so many pages. All right, go ahead.
The current assessed value is $223,463. The petitioner's value was $22,346, and we are asking the board to sustain the current assessed value.
That's in the plume, in the EPA's institutional control boundary, in the Superfund designation, odd shape, a large part of it likely not usable because it's triangular, and limited availability of industrial load power.
Next is petition number 2025-241 for parcel number 121956915, represented by PIA LLC.
All right, the current assessed value is $313,632. And the petitioner's value was $31,363. And we are asking the board to sustain the current assessed value.
That one is in the plume, in the institutional control boundary, in the Superfund designation, limited industrial power available. And that one has, as shown on the EPA's drawing set, that one has the infiltration extraction trench on it.
Okay.
Next is petition number 2025-242 for parcel number 121956916, represented by PIA LLC.
All right, the current assessed value is $361,004. And the petitioner's value was $36,100. And we're asking the board to sustain the current assessed value.
That is in the heart of the plume, in the EPA's institutional control boundary, in the Superfund designation that has EPA facilities in the form as shown on the EPA's drawings, that has infiltration, extraction trenches, and extraction wells and piping.
That's last 3916, is that what?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right,
Last one is petition number 2025-243 for parcel number 121956917, represented by PIA LLC.
go ahead, Clayton.
All right, the current assessed value is $233,481. And the petitioner's value was $23,348. And we are asking the board to sustain the current assessed value.
That one, let's start off, first of all, is it's an absolute triangle, so its useful footprint is extremely limited. That is in the heart of the plume. That's within the EPA's institutional control authority boundary. It's within the Superfund designation boundary. It is burdened by having EPA pursuant to their drawings, extraction and infiltration trenches on it. It has an extraction well. It has an access for the extraction well pad and a driveway on it. So that one's a heavily impacted site.
This concludes the Grant County Board of Equalization hearings. The board will review all the information provided, and board orders stating their decisions will be issued within 45 days. If either party disagrees with the board's decisions, it may appeal to the Washington State Board of Tax Appeals within 30 days of the mailing of the board order.